Hi, welcome to Tattoo Homewreckers. Once again, we are having a slightly unconventional episode. Callista is out this week because both my husband Caboose and myself, I'm Gaia, in case you don't know that. I don't know how the fuck you listen to this and you don't know who I am. But hey, if you didn't, my name's Gaia. This is my husband Caboose, also known as Dan. But if you know him through me, call him Caboose.
I'm back.
He's back. We both have COVID, so we are quarantining away from Callista, which really means because we all live together, she's just hiding in her room for the next week. So we instead are going to record, but that's also why we don't have an episode last week, because we were entirely too sick. So today we are going to talk about growth. It's actually really cool because I asked him, like, hey, do you want to go on the podcast with me? And if you do, what do you want to discuss? And I let him do it, and he said growth. So we will start with, why did you pick growth?
It's kind of like the stage of my life that I'm in right now. You know, it's kind of been my focus for the past few weeks. So I figured might as well, share it with other people. It's also kind of a hard topic for me to talk about. And I figure it's probably a good way to grow to talk about it.
Absolutely. So what does growth look like to you? Like, define what growth is for anyone who doesn't know what that means.
So for me, it's kind of taking all the, I guess, positive aspects of your life and trying to progress them, to take like steps forward in whatever area that may be, personal, professional, or your love life or whatever, So that's what it looks like to me. What would you describe growth as?
I think that for me, it's definitely just a constant improvement, and it ebbs and flows. So there's like periods of my life where it's like a lot heavier focused on, say, like working out more, or like working on like mental growth and like mental gains, and working on like being more disciplined with myself. And then there are times in which has kind of been more so like this year, like really since last year, around this time, we've been working on me learning how to like delegate out responsibilities. And the growth area for me in that sense of the last year has really been on like relaxing more. But I think that growth to me is just that continuous improvement, whether it be like something big or something small.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this earlier, and I came up with like this like visualization. It's kind of corny, I think, but it's like if you think of a tree when it grows, it doesn't grow one branch at a time, right? So It's just slowly progressing all these other areas until it's a massive tree, and the branches that get the most sunlight, of course, they're going to grow faster, but it's the whole tree's going to grow. So that's kind of how I like to think about it,
Yeah. I think that sometimes people get into a place where they go, you keep kicking on tripod. If you're watching this, sorry, it looks like we have an earthquake, but really it's just because he keeps kicking a tripod because he's
long
too big.
dancer's legs.
Sure. I think that people get hyper focused on one area of their life. So like, okay, I'm going to work on my physical fitness, and they don't work on like the mental side then. Or they're like, okay, I'm just going to focus on like just going to therapy and working on my mental fitness, and they don't focus on like their nutrition and how it's all really intertwined. So I really like that like analogy of the tree. I think it's a really good analogy. So what are some areas that you've grown? Like, how have you grown? We've been together for 15 years. You're not the same exact person I got with.
Yeah. And I think that, for me, years ago, before we started this whole journey, it was kind of like this thing where I don't know if other people have the same idea, but like once you become an adult, you kind of, that's the person you are for the rest of your life. And I was kind of in that mindset, and you slowly started exposing me to these other ideas,
He says slowly, but it's been the entire, like probably it's been the entire thing. I've always read self-help books the entire time. It just took him a long time.
Yeah, because I was of that mindset, like I joined the military, and now, I'm a man, and this is the person that I am, and you're going to love me for who I am, or, you can get out of my life. And that's kind of, I know it's a really toxic idea, but like the ideas that you started to give to me through, your self-help or like podcasts or whatever, they slowly started to build up over time. And it's like, I forget who has the 32 degrees. Is that
James Clear, Atomic
Clear,
Habits,
where like, all these ideas were building up over time. And then finally, I think we had like a really big argument or something. Mm-hmm. And I was like, screw it, I'm just going to get therapy. And that was the turning point. And I feel like once I started talking to a therapist, that was like, I've made all that information that I've had, I've actually been able to put into practice.
So how long have you been doing therapy, for anyone who doesn't know?
I don't remember. I think 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Two and a half months, something like that. Yeah.
And it's helping a lot?
It is, yeah. It's, I don't know. I'm kind of a solitary person, so I don't have a whole lot of people that I talk to. So having somebody outside of my inner circle, because all the friends that I have are really close friends, and it's somebody I can just kind of just talk to about all my problems, and having that sounding board has been a great help.
And like kind of also like a reflection of all the stuff you previously learned is now then being like reaffirmed.
Yeah.
Okay, so with the exception of therapy, what other tools do you use? Because you mentioned podcasts. Mm-hmm. Like, do you have like any particular like tools that you like that help you grow?
So there's a few. I mean, it's mainly the ones that you've sent me, so Brené Brown and Glennon Doyle. But still, like, I don't know, to try and be happy in all aspects of my life. Like, I have other podcasts that I listen to, like professional podcasts. There's Orbital Mechanics podcast, because my aspiration is to be in the aerospace industry.
Yeah.
So I think that keeping my eye on that prize and trying to grow in that area as well has been helpful. Tools, I mean, it's pretty cliche, but just the books, the self-help books. James Clear, I forget his name.
Yeah.
Ryan Holiday.
Oh, yeah. Ryan Holiday is really good too.
Yeah. Brené Brown. What about you? What are some tools besides that?
I, obviously am huge into like our Lord and Savior, Brené Brown. But lately I've been listening, like I've been trying to find podcasts because I really like podcasts because I can listen to them while I work.
That's what I'm gonna say. You have so much time where your ears are open that.
Yeah. So like while I'm drawing for work or like doing stuff around the house or driving, depending if I'm in a place where I'm like really wanting to push and say, hey, we're growing right now. So I seek out a lot of knowledge, and then I'll have like a week or two where it's just like a fun book, like a murder mystery situation. But I lean a lot towards podcasts because I also like that conversational. That's obviously why we got into podcasts, is because I love having that conversation and connection with someone, that conversational format.
Right. It makes it feel more real too. It's not like you're being preached at or being talked to. You know.
And the examples feel a lot more real for me. So there's been a lot that it's like these little snippets that you can like send to people and be like, hey, this podcast, it's 30 minutes of your time, but it can have like profound, groundbreaking things. And I always, obviously, like audiobooks have been a thing because I struggle with like physically reading big books, but like listening to an 18-hour audiobook, I'm stoked for. And then just finding like I am on the mailing list so I get the emails and read those like for James Clear and Brené's work. And so I think, and then just finding other authors through them. But like lately I've been trying to find a lot of stuff from like the male perspective because my life is so female centric, that I'm trying to like through you getting therapy and talking more about your emotions has then pushed me to want to see where I have played into these situations. So like, we were talking earlier about Glennon's latest podcast that has Natalie Portman on there, and she talks about men inherently not wanting to like listen to women's stories, and like that being something that there's a big struggle in Hollywood with that, but also even like within sports. So the example she used is that her son was watching a soccer game and she saw that it was like women's soccer, and she was like, okay, well, I don't want, he's going to realize that this is women's soccer and turn it off. And he didn't, because he's a young child and he doesn't care. He just wanted to watch a good football game. And she realized her own bias and prejudice. And we've just had that realization as of late that like there was a lot of shows that I just assumed you wouldn't like because they are considered dramas, or even like romantic comedies, which are not seen as classically male-oriented movies or shows. So, or like the lead is a female, so I just never introduced you because I was like, oh, he won't be interested in this. It's about a woman. And like how my sexism has played into furthering that as well. So like lately it's been a lot about like looking at it from the male perspective to see how we can better, like how I can better help you, but also how like we as like a feminist movement can better attack that in a like gentle way. So it says, okay, here's how we are perpetuating this cycle. How are we able to then help men like get out of that cycle as well?
Yeah, and it's hard because the male upbringing we're taught, oh, it's WNBA, it's not a real sport, and then that kind of feeds into you thinking, oh, if WNBA is on the TV, nobody's going to watch it because it's women.
Yeah.
And then nobody watches it because of that, and then the sports don't get any money, and then they don't get any, and it's just kind of like this cycle where it's being reinforced. So.
Yeah. And I think through having the conversations around it, sorry, you're going to hear us periodically clear our throats because we are still like getting over COVID the second time around. But yeah, like having those hard conversations around it, I think is another one of those big things with like growth, is like leaning into the discomfort of, hey, I've made mistakes and I want to talk about this. And also inviting that like I talk a lot about this, that if no one's ever come out to you, and you guys have probably heard me say this before, it's because you have not provided a safe place. And I think it's the same thing with hard conversations, is that if people don't come to you wanting to have a hard conversation, you are not laying out a place that says, hey, we can support a hard conversation. Like our relationship can support it. And I, as a person, can handle a hard conversation. And I think that like, that's kind of like what therapy has helped you too, is to realize that like, I don't have to support our hard conversations. You too can support our hard conversations. So it's like you choosing the topic of gross being a very hard conversation, and you being like, nah, I'm picking the hard button today.
I feel like that's hard as well, though, because you have a lot of people. I think Brené was talking about, boundaries, and they will try to hardwire a relationship by forcing a hard conversation when you're not ready for it. Where they're floodlighting you. Yeah, so I think that's an area where you have to be careful, because I've had that happen a lot where, you start. I don't know if it's like more of a male trait. But I've had quite a few men where, you start, you're in the beginning like phases of a friendship or whatever, and they just drop a huge bomb on you, and you're like, I was not ready for that, and I don't know if that's because us as men, we typically don't know how to have those close relationships. So they see that as a shortcut, as a way to get a stronger friendship,
Yeah.
Like, oh, I divulged this information with you, so now we're best friends. And it's like,
and you're like, no.
I was not ready.
Yeah, this was a non-consensual conversation. We are here to like build those. And I think that's the thing though, is like, I think you are right that a lot of people jumped the gun on that because they don't know how to build up to that. Yeah. And I think that like that's just part of like building relationships, is taking that time to say, hey, we're taking little baby steps and build that foundation. So then when you unload big conversations, then the foundation of your friendship can support that.
So I have a question, and do you think it's worse now than it was, our previous generation, as far as people being able to build those friendships?
Okay, I think that's an interesting an interesting question, because I think that there are a lot of like topics of conversation that we are, and I say this in quotations, not supposed to talk about. So politics, religion, sex, money, like all of that. We are not supposed to talk about it. It's not considered polite conversation. And so I think that a lot of times if someone does drop like a doozy on there and people say, oh, no, I wasn't ready for it, you have to look at it and say, okay, am I not ready for it? Because I personally, like, this is a big thing. Like, you meet someone and 2 seconds in, they're like, hey, I fucked my brother. And you're like, whoa, okay. Or if it's 2 seconds in and they say, hey, I'm queer. And you're like, whoa, like, is it because in previous generations, they said, you cannot talk about this? Or if someone's like at your work and they're like, hey, I make $75,000 a year. Does your brain automatically go, okay, so you're being braggy? Or is it because you're talking about something that like society deemed to be not polite conversation, because those areas are the areas in which we are controlled the most? So I don't think that it's worse than the fact that people are oversharing. I personally believe that people need to share more to normalize what we would consider hard conversations.
Well, and I guess my another part to that question is, do you think it's harder for people to have those hard conversations because they're not used to having conversations with people? There's so much technology now that most of like your correspondence is online.
No, because I think that I don't believe that bullshit of like, you should have this conversation with me in person. I don't follow that. I don't follow this like, hey, if you wanted to get a divorce, you don't need to sit down face to face with me and tell me you want a divorce. Because honestly, how is it any different? Like, yeah, we yell about phones and technology, but how is it any different from when people were separated before and they wrote letters?
Right.
Like, we corresponded with each other a long time through chats, through emails, and had deep conversations, because sometimes that's the best way for you to have a hard conversation. And like, the like argument we got into the other night, I don't remember what it was about. I don't know if you remember. It was probably about something stupid, but I was really, really mad, right? Oh, I remember now. Okay.
I put the dishes away.
Because he put the dishes away. I'll do this really quick story. But I was like ready for bed, and then he decided to clean the kitchen, and we realized that like, because I have a very like type A OCD brain, it is very difficult for me to turn off my brain. I don't know if you guys have gotten that from like listening to me talk, but it is. I run at like 150% all the time. So when I had worked so hard, because I have to work really hard to get myself ready for bed, and he went into the kitchen and turned on like all the stuff and is making noise and is doing things, I then have that combination of like guilt that I am like not doing anything, like I'm still relaxing on the couch, and then all these like noise and lights and everything is going on. So then I'm awake and I feel like, okay, well, I need to be productive because he's being productive. And now I get up and I have to do stuff. So now I'm awake, and now it's going to take me hours to get back to sleep. And at that moment, I didn't realize that that was what had happened. All I knew was I was angry. And he's thinking he's doing this great thing because he's like, okay, cool, I'm putting away the dishes. I'm making sure the house is clean, because he knows but I mostly enjoy a clean house. I'm pretty sure if I wasn't like a part of this household, him and Callista would have a very different lifestyle.
We would have 2 bowls, 2 plates, 1 spoon apiece. Like,
yeah. And there would just be shit on the counters all the time. But because they love me, they are really amazing at keeping the house super clean. So then I'm just grumpy. I'm slamming doors, like super pissed off. I didn't technically mean to slam the door. I just like didn't realize how hard I closed the closet door and it slammed. And he's like over there like, what the fuck? Why are you punishing me? I was
like, you want to talk about it? Like, I don't know what's going on right now.
But I wasn't in a place that I had the words, and I just wanted to fight. So I knew that like I couldn't have that conversation with him. So I was like, you take a shower. And then I went and sat in the closet because that's my happy place. And I like texted him. So, and because I was able to take the time to put it into words via text and explain like where I was coming from, it gave my brain time to then be able to figure out and formulate. And then it gave him the ability to respond, to say, hey, okay, this makes sense. So we had a beautiful conversation that would have not been that clear or that easily understood, that then through me having that realization, because I was taking the time to write it out as opposed to say it, and for you having that time to read it and not have me glaring at you waiting for a response.
Right.
It gave both of us the space to breathe, to answer. So that was a very long-winded way to say that I don't think there's anything wrong with texting. I think that people have always had a hard time having face-to-face conversations, that eye contact is hard for a lot of people, and that people get really uncomfortable hearing hard things. But if you're able to practice it through text or, phone calls or emails, whatever, A, you're still getting the growth, and B, you're still building like those like relationships, and B, it's practice,
right,
for having those hard conversations in person. Because if that's the way that you learn, hey, this is the person that like I've already told them all this, so now face to face we can have those real conversations, then like I see nothing wrong with that. And also, I don't always want to sit there and fucking have someone tell me face to face if you're telling me shit news. I want to have a moment to breathe. Like we've had, when I owned a shop, I had employees quit in the craziest of ways. I had ones that quit via phone call, and we had one that quit via a fucking sticky note. And honestly, I'm not mad about all of them. Any of them. None of them. You know what? If that's how you want to quit, I don't think you're a coward. I think that like if that conversation was too hard face to face, that's okay. I don't think anything's wrong with that. That was a good question. Okay, I have some other questions and I fucking forgot them. Okay, so what is an area that you're working on growing more? I think we just touched on introspection as something that you're like currently working on.
Yeah, I think that's been my main goal. I think ever since Atlas of the Heart came out, and which we haven't finished.
We haven't. It's so hard, y'all. This book is so good. I highly recommend it. Brené Brown, Atlas of the Heart. She also has an HBO special. And I think we're on like episode 2 of the HBO special, because it is profoundly difficult and hard and beautiful.
But I found, I think even before that, I realized that was an area where you'd say, okay, well, what are you feeling right now? And I'd be like, I don't know. Mad and or happy. And it's like, no, there's a whole spectrum in between there that you could possibly be feeling. So, and I couldn't pinpoint it. And I think, I don't know where I picked this up, if it was just something that kind of was ingrained into me being brought up as a man, was this whole thing where you're not allowed to feel like stressed out or anxious, and realizing that a lot of our communication issues was because of my stress levels. And I think my therapist is the one that actually pointed out, it's like, oh, well, you're getting flooded by these stress hormones whenever you're in a tough conversation, and that's why like you go into, I think Brené calls it lizard brain, where your brain just shuts off and all you can think about is like running or fighting, and being able to check in and say, okay, well, where's my stress level at? Can I have this conversation right now? And that, I think that's been a huge step for us for communication. We
learned that through the Gottman Institute.
Yeah, the 4 horsemen. I forget which one it is. Stonewalling, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's stonewalling. Yeah. Also, if you want to improve relationships, you want to grow in that area of your life. You see how we have to like plug in the theme right there?
Yeah.
If you want to grow in that area, Gottman Institute, we are not sponsored by them, but they have like programs, and we did an email thing where they basically sent out like weekly emails or daily emails.
It was daily, yeah.
Daily, yeah, for us to like work on communication. And it was amazing because we did that, and then he went right into like, I think I need therapy. And like that really helped with like the communication between both of us.
Yep. So what about you? What's one area that you're focusing on right now?
Ooh, okay. This is a hard one to talk about. It is my relationship with my body in a sexual sense. That is such a weird sentence to say. Because I have closed off so much of like being seen as a sexual being, and I like wear clothes so you can't see that like I have breasts often, and I tend to wear stuff that you can't see like the shape of my body much because I am so afraid of being seen as a sexual object that I then didn't realize how much that had transitioned into our personal life and into my personal relationship with my body and like hating my body. So as I am, not wearing a bra, or like, I like that your eyes just went down to my boobs, or, wearing stuff that makes me feel more confident sexually, and like exposing more skin, it is then playing into a huge area, like to have a healthier relationship with us, because I'm more okay with you like touching me, but also just a healthier relationship with myself, like just walking around and being like happy, being like, hey, I'm not going to have a 6-pack because I want to eat food. But then just kind of connecting with that and being, I think like, I don't remember, it was something from Schitt's Creek that I saw this post on social media, and she talked about like taking a ton of pictures of yourself so that way you'll, because one day you'll look back with kinder eyes. So even if you don't think you're attractive now, one day you will look back and think, man, I was beautiful. And so I've been really working on looking at myself currently with kinder eyes, not waiting till later, but looking in the mirror and just like feeling myself with kind eyes and like enjoying myself. And if that means that like other people are going to view me as something that is sexy and as uncomfortable as that currently makes me feel, then I have to be like, I can't shut out the whole world, because when I shut out the whole world, I ended up shutting out myself on that area. So just like how you stonewalled a lot of emotions, I stonewalled my own sexuality, and it kind of happened through us like getting married and then not wanting, and like through tattooing, like wanting to preserve what we have and then also make sure that we're safe, like I'm safe within the industry. On that note, we are going to do a quick sponsor break, so we will be right back, but we have to pause because the camera can only go for 30 minutes.
Do you or your dad suffer from getting bullied? Is your dad constantly getting beat up for his milk money? If this sounds like you or your dad, then try Ben Kwan Do. Here at Ben Kwan Do, we'll have you beating up your bully and taking their lunch money. Our Master Sensei, Ben, has developed this cutting-edge martial art in his 4 years as a professional wrestler on the varsity wrestling team. Learn the patented monkey smashes the grapes technique, the monkey snatches the peach technique, and various other ways to attack your bully's sensitive bits. Mention Tattoo Homewreckers to get your first week free. First week must be used during night classes. Night classes are from 2:30 a.m. to 3:30 a.m. Normal hours are 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. and 11:30 p.m. to 12:30 p.m. Maternity classes are from 12 a.m. to 1 p.m. Ferrets and rats are not allowed. Class is free to toddlers and babies.
This episode is brought to you by Captain Callista's Fish Sticks. Are you tired of fish sticks being made out of one type of fish, or worse yet, not knowing the fish your fish stick is made out of? Well, here at Captain Callista's, we offer our fish sticks in a multitude of fish flavors for your sophisticated palate. Our fish sticks include whale, seal, manatee, sea cucumber, sea turtle, and 100% white meat starfish. Visit your local grocery store and ask for Captain Callista's Fish Sticks today.
Welcome back. Once again, I hope that any of those commercials and or sponsors were helpful, and let us know if you like the products. One day we might get actual commercials. For now, we're just going to keep making up our own. Okay, so we were talking about growth. So what is something that you want for the future? Like you touched on, like maybe career-wise, like what is something that like you're hoping to accomplish through all this growth?
Right. I think I have some, I mean, to talk about, I guess, James Clear a little bit, the main issue that I experience with, growing in certain areas is that I have these detrimental habits, I guess. And I kind of backslide into these comfort areas, where like I don't, it's easier to not work on, progressing professionally than it is to actually sit down and do, calculus, which is literally what I have to do to kind of progress in the areas that I want to progress in. So I need to kind of figure out where I'm sidetracking myself, I guess, by backsliding into these bad habits where, it holds me back in those areas.
Have you thought about maybe rewording so they're not bad habits, but they're previous habits? Like for me, that helps to not think of something as like good or bad, but just like that worked for past me. But like future me, it's that like same thing. We keep bringing up James because he talks a lot about that in Atomic Habits, about the like, if you want to be a person who is fit, then you just ask yourself throughout the day, like, what does a fit person do? What does a fit person eat? Like, what does a fit person do for like, getting an extra step to parking your car further? So like if you want to be in, I don't know, the space world, whatever the fuck it's called, rocket land, like asking yourself like what an engineer would do in that moment,
right? Rather
than thinking like these are bad habits, but just they worked for previous Caboose.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's one of the issues. I mean, we're going to keep talking about the same people, but they're kind of like our go-tos. But like Brené talks about, vocabulary and putting the right vocabulary with the right things. And I think I
didn't think about that.
Really powerful. And even my therapist was talking about it when we were talking about, how I would just shut off in our arguments or when we're having a difficult conversation. And she's like, well, you need to not call it, something negative. It's something that's happening to you, not something that you're doing, first of all. So like your stress levels are too high. You're getting flooded by these hormones. You're not overwhelmed. You're flooded,
Yeah.
And just kind of changing that mindset where, if I'm experiencing that, it's not because I'm a bad person. It's because something is happening to me. And I think that's kind of that, like what you were saying, if I am doing something that isn't productive, isn't going to make me the person that I want to be, then it's, something in the environment that's affecting me.
Yeah.
And I forget what his analogy is. You have these things in your environment, and everything in your environment is pulling your attention. And it depends on what ends up grabbing your attention will get your full attention.
Yeah. So get your actions.
Right. And if it's not something that is going to help you be the person that you want to be, then it's, I don't know how else to word it besides.
Well, I guess for me, I don't like to think of anything as good or bad because I think it paints stuff as black and white. Whereas like those habits brought you up to this point. So obviously they served you. But for me, it's the idea of like, okay, those are past habits, because then that allows you to put it back there and be like, okay, I'm creating new habits. Because also, if you say these are good habits, but then what happens in a year when those habits are no longer serving you and you have to like grow more and say, hey, now I need new habits. So I think for me, it's that constant, like everything is in a constant evolving state of like, hey, I'm trying to make sure that like it's all fluid, that my current habits are creating my current situation. So if I want a different situation in the future, then I need to create different habits. But I don't think of like, at least I try not to put them in like these are bad habits or good habits.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if how you feel about that. Something else that we talked about that I wanted to touch on for listeners is like, not, if you hear us, we talk about Glennon, we talk about Brené. When Callie and I talk, we talk a lot about like Liz Gilbert, because I am a huge follower of hers as well. When we talk about like James Clear or Ryan Holiday, and Ryan Holiday does like the, I don't remember his exact book, but it's on Stoicism. And we talk a lot about like picking and choosing, like he said it great earlier, where you like a la carte your like mental health and your like whatever your goals are. So like not just being a blind follower, because not to shit on this specific podcast or this specific podcaster / coach. I was a huge fan of Ben Bergeron, and he made a massive impact on my like life and on my athleticism and all of that through his podcasts. But then I realized that as I was wanting to live a more wholehearted life and not just pursue athletics, it was not serving me. So following his habits of like extreme ownership and things like that ended up putting me in a place, like he is a firm believer of no complaining whatsoever, whereas I definitely follow along the lines of Brené's area, which is productive parsimony. And being able to like pick and choose the things that work for you and make you feel warm and make you feel good. And we were talking about that, of not just like blindly following one style of self-improvement.
Right. Because I think one of the first people I listened to, and it was kind of like I still didn't want to fully, I guess, embrace this whole, self-help, I guess, idea, was Ryan Michler. And he has a book, I forget what it's called, but it had some good ideas, but I don't feel like anything in it was particularly original. But it was a very hyper-masculine, toxic book. And I started following him and following people that, he recommended, and ended up realizing like these people, who they are is not who I want to be. So why am I following them? There was a lot of like homophobic, transphobic things, and just all of the people that followed them were pretty much the same. And I got railed one time because he posted up a post about how if you weren't born a male, you can't be a man. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I know plenty of people when I was in the military that were born a male, and like my wife is way more manly than them. And like by his definition of what a man should be. And I said, you can't say that. Like you can't just make a blanket statement. And I just got railed by everybody in his comments. I was like, you know what? This isn't for me. And I found other people that were saying the same thing, but were, I guess, more well-rounded people. And I was like, yes, that's more along the lines of who I want to be. So that's who I end up following.
Well, and I think that's why, like, as a group, like, we all talk about, like, Brené and Glennon and Ryan and James and, like, Abby, because, like, they all have the same like core values that we have. So then like we gravitate towards the same type of like people. So then like usually if Brené like recommends someone or Glennon recommends like a book, then oftentimes I will most likely like it, because I'm like, oh, we have a lot of the same like core values. And then like and you get different lessons from different people.
Yeah, for sure.
So okay, so then my last question for you is, what are some of your favorite lessons that you've learned? And where did you get them from, besides just books and podcasts?
I mean, I think that's mainly it. So a lot of times, like, social media is such a huge thing nowadays. a lot of, I mean, you can read a book once and you're not going to retain all the information, but I feel like a lot of people will kind of re-emphasize the key points of whatever their book is. So like, Ryan Holiday will constantly post up quotes from famous Stoics and things like that, or post up books, and it kind of reminds you of the key points of what you listen to. So I think social media it can be a really good tool in that sense. Of course, there's a lot of toxic self-help and shortcuts and things like that, and I don't think social media should be your therapist. But like if you need something, those little motivational quotes I think they can be really beneficial.
Yeah, they help me a lot.
The little like 2 or 3 sentences that remind you, oh yeah, that's that thing that I read, But I think right now I'm kind of in a place where I'm trying to I guess be that introspective person and kind of check in with myself to see what I'm feeling, and be able to put a word to it, I guess.
Yeah.
So what about you? What are
some of your favorite lessons that you've learned?
Oh, favorite lessons. I think that's my number one right now is we kind of touched on it, was that whole vocabulary, being able to say, what his example was, whether or not you're a smoker. Right. What's the quote? I don't remember exactly.
That when you identify as something, then it is very easy to stand by those values. So if someone offers me a cigarette, I'm like, oh, I'm not a smoker, thank you, but like, no. And you don't think twice about like, hey, should I have that? So changing that vocabulary, saying I identify as this,
right,
then is something that makes it easier. So like I identify as an athlete. So for me, working out is not something that I like see as being difficult, because that's something that I, as an athlete, just naturally do.
Right. So like with me, that's kind of the mindset that I'm trying to embrace, trying to be an engineer, and it's not the easiest thing for me, going back to school, having been out of school since I don't even know, I can't do the math right now. So
for a long time,
and trying to go back into it and just not grasping these concepts that were easy for me before. So telling myself, what would an engineer do? If you want to be an engineer, this is, I guess, the ideas that you have to embrace. And I think I've let a lot of my, friends know, and they kind of look towards me in the professional realm, look towards me to be that kind of engineering role. And that's kind of, helped me embrace that idea.
I love that.
So your turn.
My turn.
What is your favorite or most recent thing that you've learned?
Okay, so I've been on a kick on this the last couple days. It is the latest episode that Natalie Portman is on of We Can Do Hard Things, and she talks about the gendered vocabulary and how like words like gossip are incredibly gendered. So when we hear the word gossip, it is negative, and we also think of women, whereas when men share ideas, we think of that as just information gathering. It is just sharing. And that's like my biggest thing right now, is analyzing that sort of like language and saying, hey, when I'm speaking, what am I saying? But also like, I'm obsessed with that right now. That, and then it's just the same, like always touching back on like lessons from Brené, and just lessons on like white fragility and how I can like do my part to like help break down systemic racism and systemic sexism. Those are like my like cornerstones. But right now it's on that language, because I think language is so much more important than people realize.
Yep.
So, yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much. If you would love to send us a voicemail, you know we love them, and let us know what's something that you're currently growing with and working on. And if you have any resources that you particularly love that you're like, man, this book changed my life, please send it to us. We would love to share it with other people. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.